The day she chose him was the same day the world laughed at her. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't quiet. It was loud, cruel, and painfully real, the kind of laughter that doesn't just echo in the air, but settles deep inside your chest, like something broken. She stood there, in the harsh honesty of daylight, feeling every stare, every whisper, every judgment. And still, she didn't move. Because in front of her stood a man who had nothing. No money, no status, no impressive words to defend himself. Just silence, and eyes that carried a lifetime of quiet struggles. And somehow, she chose him. If you believe in kindness, in humanity, and in second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because stories like this deserve to be felt, not just heard. Her name was Zareen, a woman who had learned early in life that love wasn't always gentle, it wasn't always kind. Sometimes it humiliated you in public and broke you in private. She had grown up in a house where respect was measured in wealth, where worth was counted in achievements, and where love was always conditional. So when she stood at that doorway, sunlight brushing softly against her face, her heart wasn't just beating, it was fighting. Because on the other side of that moment stood Raheel. He wasn't the kind of man people admired. His clothes were simple, slightly worn at the edges. His shoes carried dust from roads walked without direction. Even the backpack slung over his shoulder looked older than it should have been. He didn't belong in her world, and everyone made sure he knew it. But Zareen saw something no one else did. She saw how he stood, not with confidence, but with quiet dignity, as if he knew he had nothing, and still refused to beg for anything. The whispers started before he even reached the gate. Neighbors peeking through curtains, strangers passing by with amused glances, even her own relatives standing just inside the house, watching with thinly veiled disapproval. "What does he have?" someone muttered. "Nothing," another voice replied. The word lingered, heavy, final. Nothing. And yet, Zareen stepped forward. Every step felt heavier than the last, like she was walking against an invisible force trying to pull her back. Her mother's disapproving stare burned into her back. Her father's silence was even worse, a cold, cutting judgment that said more than words ever could. But still, she walked. Because she remembered something no one else cared about. The day she had nothing. It had been a different afternoon months ago. Rain pouring down in quiet sheets, turning the city into something grey and distant. She had been sitting alone on a bus stop bench, her world collapsing silently around her. Her engagement had ended that morning, not because she wasn't enough, but because she wasn't rich enough. The humiliation had been quiet, but deep, the kind that makes you question your own worth. And that's when Raheel had appeared. He hadn't asked questions. He hadn't offered empty comfort. He had simply sat beside her, sharing his umbrella without a word. Minutes passed, then more, and in that silence, something strange happened. She felt seen, not judged, not measured, just understood. When she finally looked at him, he smiled, not a confident smile, not a charming one, just a simple, honest smile that said, "You're okay." And for the first time that day, she believed it. Back in the present, standing at her doorway, Zareen realized something that no one else seemed to understand. Raheel had nothing, but he had given her something no one else ever had: peace. The laughter grew louder as she reached him. Someone nearby shook their head. Another whispered something cruel under their breath. Even the wind felt heavier, as if carrying all the judgment in the air. Raheel lowered his gaze slightly, as if preparing himself for rejection, for humiliation, for the inevitable moment when she would step back and choose what everyone expected her to choose. But she didn't. Instead, she stood beside him. Not behind him, not above him, beside him. And in that single moment, everything changed. The laughter didn't stop immediately, the whispers didn't disappear, but something shifted, something quiet, yet powerful. Because Zareen didn't just choose a man, she chose dignity over approval. She chose truth over comfort. She chose a heart over a reputation. Her family couldn't understand it. Her mother's eyes filled with disbelief. Her father turned away, unable to accept what was happening right in front of him. To them, this wasn't love. It was a mistake, a failure, a disgrace. But to Zareen, it was the first honest decision she had ever made. Life after that day wasn't easy. The world didn't suddenly become kind. The judgments didn't disappear overnight. There were days when reality hit hard, when bills felt heavier, when silence filled their small apartment, when doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. Raheel still struggled, still worked odd jobs, still came home tired, carrying the weight of a world that never gave him a fair chance. And yet, he never stopped trying, never stopped caring, never stopped loving her in the simplest, purest ways. He remembered things no one else did. The way she liked her tea slightly less sweet, the way she felt quiet when something bothered her, the way her eyes searched for reassurance without saying a word. He didn't have money to give her gifts, but he gave her attention. He didn't have status to impress her family, but he gave her respect. And slowly, quietly, that became enough. More than enough. Months turned into years. The whispers faded, the laughter disappeared. People moved on, as they always do. But what remained was something real, something unbreakable. Because love, when it's built on truth, doesn't need validation. It just needs two people willing to hold on. Before this story reaches its end, take a moment. Comment something meaningful below, a word, a feeling, or even a simple message of support. Because sometimes your words can become someone else's strength. One evening, as sunlight poured gently through their window, painting the room in warm, golden hues, Zareen sat quietly, watching Raheel fix a broken chair. His hands were rough, his movements careful, his focus unwavering. He still didn't have much, but in that moment, she realized something profound. He had become everything. Not because he changed, but because she saw him when no one else did. And maybe that's what love truly is. Not choosing someone because they have everything, but choosing them even when they have nothing, and standing beside them until they become your whole world. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't scroll away. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and become part of a community that still believes in real love. Because sometimes, the most valuable people in your life are the ones the world almost overlooked.